Hello, Tomatron the One here. I don't think I need to introduce this, but welcome to my review of the Plarail Thomas 80th Anniversary Railway Series Thomas. Now, I'm sure you all know what this is, but for the couple of people that probably don't, this is an exclusive Thomas that Plarail Japan has made in celebration of the 80th anniversary of the Railway Series, as you can see with the nice 80th emblem right there. So what this Thomas is, it is specifically, if I can get them both in focus here, it is specifically a recreation of the Thomas off of the front cover of Railway Series number 2, Thomas the Tank Engine. This specific image is probably the most iconic picture from the Railway. Well, it is the most iconic picture from the Railway Series, one of the most iconic pictures of Thomas of all time. And if you ever think of the Railway Series, it's most likely this face comes to mind. So what Plarail have done is they have recreated the specific Thomas from that picture. And they've given us a Railway Series Annie and Clarabelle with very similar faces to the Railway Series illustrations when they first appeared. Now, like I said, this is Japan exclusive. I got mine from Tootly Thomas in the UK. He goes for about £40, which is a lot, but considering that this is exclusive to Japan, and that I'm pretty sure this won't be made again after this production run, I think it is probably worth going to get. But anyway, enough babbling, let's just get into the review. So first of all, I'm just going to talk about the box quickly. It's a very nice looking box. Obviously it's covered in Japanese text that I can't read, but the presentation is absolutely spot on. You've got a nice picture of this little book, which I will go through in a second. You have a picture of what looks to be a CGI Thomas on the bottom. It's probably something to do with this text down here. Then you have the picture of the toy, as most Plarail items do, but then the background is like a paper sort of design, which looks very, very stylish. I don't think any other Plarail toy really does that. And then on the far right, you have the exact Thomas that the toy inside is replicating, along with some more text along the side, another 80th banner. And on the back, it just goes through the instructions, which luckily are quite obvious pictures, so you don't need to read the instructions specifically. And actually, on the bottom, there's another picture of the item, but then you also get this picture of Thomas, and I don't know where this is from, to be perfectly honest with you. This could be from the Railway Series, and I'm just forgetting. But I don't think I've ever seen it before, so I'm going to say that's exclusive to this toy. Speaking of the toy, here he is. Here is the Thomas included with the set. Now, I was never really a Trackmaster Tomy kid. I was a take-along, take-and-play Ertl kid because diecast toys are cheap and they scale with the Pixar Cars diecast toys, and my dad collects diecast, so it was just kind of like a family thing. We collect diecasts. But Plarail Thomas and Tomy Thomas Trackmaster, whatever, has always been the toy that I wish I collected because it is so cool. Like, this is my first... Well, it's not my first Thomas. When I was a kid, I had the Thomas and the Jet Engine Thomas, which had the shocked face. I don't know what happened to that. I think I lost it, unfortunately, but I remember being obsessed with that Thomas. So forgive me if I get anything wrong or if I don't mention something unique about this Thomas, because this is the regular Thomas mold that Plarail have been using since 1990 something. I don't know when they started making Tomy Thomas, but this Thomas is copyright Ghislaine 2002. If you look at the very bottom there, it's copyright 2002. So, this specific mold has been used since 2002, but the actual first date of Plarail coming out, I don't know. But anyway, yeah, so there's kind of not much for me to say, really. This is a Thomas designed to look like the Railway Series Thomas, and that's exactly what it does. So I think I'll just quickly go over the paintwork, which is the most unique thing about this Thomas. So first of all, the face is absolutely fantastic, and actually that's a good way to show them off together. If I just move some things around, if I can get them both in frame, there we go. if you look at Thomas from the Railway series, he's got this very iconic wide smile which extends past the teeth and goes very high up. This is what the very original Hornby Thomas face was based off of, if you've ever seen that. Again, mostly because this is the most iconic picture of Thomas from the Railway series. And what Plarail have done, I don't think this is a unique face mould, but it's painted in a way, or it's printed in a way to look exactly like it's been drawn by the original illustrators, and it just looks fantastic. In person, it shows up a bit more. The face going around the top of the forehead and around the cheeks, there's little white marks on it, which are accurate. Again, if I just go back to the Thomas here, it is accurate to the picture. I don't necessarily think they had to be included on this Thomas, but they were, and in person they do stand out quite a bit more than on camera. It's just like a way of showing like definition on the face in a drawing, and it does look very interesting. And of course, he's got his rather infamous Pac-Man eyes, where it's not a complete circle, it's a complete circle with like a slice taken out, but they actually aren't symmetrical. One is going straight up and one is going slightly up. Again, that's accurate to the picture, and it does. There's not much I can say. It's a good looking face. They've also painted the running board in, it's not white, but it's grey. Now, I know not every single Plarail Thomas has a painted running board. I think recently they have started doing most, if not all, of the original Plarail Thomases with a running board painted. But they are white, and this one is grey. Because, referring back to the picture, the original illustration, it was more of a grey colour than white. So they have done that on this Thomas as well, and it looks absolutely fantastic. Now, this is kind of something that I would see as a bit cooler if the new motorised range, which, again, I'm sure you've all seen, which is starting to pop up in Australia, they also paint the running boards for the engines, which is amazing, but it just means that, like, seeing it on this Thomas doesn't stand out as much. Of course, he's got his working side rods, and speaking of the side, the details on the side, they are stickers, which is a bit unfortunate, but frankly, for a special Thomas, I'm not really too bothered. It's designed, it's not specifically based on the illustration, but it's designed to look like it's been hand-drawn, so it's got some imperfections in it. If you look at the way the lining is done, it's not a completely perfect red stripe. There's some, like, yellow going on to show, like, reflections, and the number 1 isn't completely smooth on the inside. The yellow is kind of not faded, but it's definitely it's coloured more in some areas than others. And the gap going into his cab, again, isn't painted completely in one colour, excuse me. And in person, it looks fantastic. On camera, it doesn't really show up as much. You can see, like, the difference in the sticker, but it doesn't show up quite as much. And one other thing that doesn't show up as much on camera, the colour of Thomas isn't the normal blue. It's kind of like it's almost like someone's left this out in the sun for too long. It's kind of the best way I can describe it. You know, if you've ever seen a Thomas for sale on eBay, and it's gone green, because someone's played with it in the sun, left it in the sun, found it after, I don't know, a couple of months, and it's gone a bit green. That's kind of what this one looks like. But I think that was intentional to give it sort of an old colour faded look. And it does look pretty good. Once again, in person it looks better. The cab windows, which are also stickers, they are very charming. They are not perfectly round, especially the black part in the middle. I hope you can see that. It's not perfectly... There you go. It's not perfectly rounded. And it just looks fantastic. There's no detail on the back, though, unfortunately. That was a big disappointment, because they did used to have stickers with the lamp on the back, and they didn't put one on this Thomas. Of course, this is a Tony Thomas, so if you put a battery in and flick the switch, he will run. And, yeah, runs very well. I've always really enjoyed seeing the side rods moving on these toys. That was something I always wished that they had on the diecast line. And, well, the new diecast line that's coming out in July does have side rods. They don't move, but they have them, like the Urkel range. And that looks like it's going to be an interesting thing to review. Anyway, so that's the Thomas, but we also get, and I'll just take them apart as well, Annie and Plarail. So these are kind of simple compared to Thomas. There's not much to say about them again. They're the standard Annie and Clarabelle molds, just with a new sticker and without any names on the side. So the only way really to know which one's which is dependent on which way the coupling's facing. They do have very similar faces. I think in the Railway series, this was Clarabelle's face that you see in one illustration of Thomas moving from the picture. It was this face, but then they've recreated it and actually changed it up for Clarabelle. So they gave that face to Annie and then they changed it for Clarabelle. They've given her different positioned eyes and eyebrows, and I think that's it. Yeah, they've given her different eyes and eyebrow positions, so it is different. Personally, I'm happy enough with these guys. These are fine. There's not much to say about them really. If you have an Annie and Clarabelle, you have lots of Annie and Clarabelles, or if you've seen one, you've seen them all, sort of thing. But they are very nice inclusions. It would have been interesting if they included the trucks from the pack, like we see here, the brown truck and then the grey van, because Bachmann is also releasing a pack based, again, off of that illustration, but it includes a standard Bachmann Thomas with grey buffers. No different face, though. It's the same crappy Bachmann face from 2002. And then it has the trucks that you see in the illustration. You know, the brown truck, the grey van, and the truck behind. But it's just funny how that pack is being completely ruined. Oh, well, not ruined, but completely bypassed, completely surpassed by the Plarail Thomas. There's one more thing included in the box, and that is this very cute little booklet. Now, of course, it's all in Japanese, so I can't read it, but it goes through a couple of different illustrations, and what's interesting is that they're not all from the original book. So we have this first one of Thomas backing down at Vickerstown onto the trucks, and then we move on to another one from Thomas's train, then one from Henry the Green engine, which is very nice, and they do have the names underneath the engines as well, which is very, very nice that they've written those in English. And then we move on to Percy from that's blanking me at the minute, but I think it's from Trouble in the Shed, I think. I'm not too sure. But we have Percy, then we have Harold, who's actually, his text is written in like a very light shade of pink instead of white, which is interesting. Same with Edward. Then we move on to the next page, and this is where it starts to get kind of funny. So we have Gordon from Gordon Goes Foreign, and then we have Diesel, but for some reason he's grey instead of black. I don't know why they did that. I just think it looks kind of funny. And then we have Mavis, if I can focus on the camera. Then we have Mavis from the Clive Spong illustrations, rather than the original illustrations. Same again, so we have James on one side, and then we have Bertie, and then Trevor from the Clive Spong illustration, that kind of infamous funny picture of Trevor. Then we get to Toby, who again is his original illustration, and then Skarloey and Duncan doesn't have a red buffer beam for some reason. It's completely yellow. I don't really... There must have been some colour mismatch when they made this, but I'm not too sure. Then we have Bill and Ben, again from the Clive Spong illustrations. Then we have Duck, and then a picture of the Japanese version of Thomas the Tank Engine. Yeah, very nice to see. And then the last page is just the, like, boring copyright information. 2025. Interesting that they still use the HIT logo, when HIT Entertainment technically doesn't exist anymore. It was formed into Mattel Creations. But they still use the logo for, like, the toys, which I'm not complaining. I'm a slave to my nostalgia. So I'm very glad to still see that logo be used. But anyway, I think that about does it for this review. Now, like I said, this guy retails for £40 on Tootly Thomas, which is expensive, but considering it's a Japan exclusive, and the fact that I think this guy will become extremely sought after once the production wave is over, I would recommend going out and getting this guy, because I don't collect Plarail, like I've said, except for some odd ones. So I thought if I didn't get this one, I would be missing out and I would regret it. And I think I made the right decision. I absolutely love this guy. I'm probably going to keep him in the box on my shelf, but that's okay. That means he's going to be preserved for as long as I can preserve him. So, would I drop everything to go out of your way to get him? If you can afford it, yes, because there will be eBay scalping going on at the minute, because this guy is very popular from what I've seen. I've seen loads of pictures and reviews on Twitter and YouTube of this guy. If I had to rate him, I would give him a 9. It would be a 10 if they gave him the back sticker. If they gave him that, I would be absolutely happy with this guy. But like I said, there's not really much to say. It's a standard Thomas with new paint, and new paint that looks very good. Specifically just for this face, I think this guy's worth it. So, yeah, if you can find this guy for a decent price, go out and pick him up while you still can. So anyway, I thank you very much for watching this review, and goodbye.